What would be the worst fear for an elderly woman with reduced mobility living on her own? Someone breaking into her house in the middle of the night, dragging her out of bed and ferociously attacking her. This is the case of Kathy Flynn. Known to her family as Kathy, 69-year-old Kathy Flynn was a mother, a grandmother and a great-grandmother. She was now living alone in her later life. Her family had all grown up and flown the nest, having families of their own. Kathy had grown up in Liverpool with her parents and younger brother Jim, and after having her own family, she now lived in Rhyl for the past 25 years. Kathy had a brother named Jim London. He said, "Kathy wasn't just my sister, she was my best friend, and she was the kingpin of the family." Kathy loved her home and garden, spending hours tending to her plants and making sure her home was as tidy as she could. Her daughter Natasha described her mother Kathy as the loveliest of souls. She was just the best woman you could meet, she said. She would show generosity with everyone around her. Her daughter Natasha called her mother Queenie, as she was the matriarch of the family, their queen. Kathy had become so tiny, so thin and so frail in her later years, using a wheelchair to get around a lot of the time. This was due to her illnesses, mobility, falls, and declining health. Her family had fitted up some cameras in the house, not just for her safety, but so that they could keep an eye on her in case she fell. They could just pop on the app and see that she was where she was supposed to be and not on the floor, for example. They had also fitted a doorbell cam outside, so Kathy did not need to get up every time the door rang. The camera on the doorbell would alert either Kathy or her daughter by a message to their phones. Kathy was still always trying to look after people. Despite being ill herself, it was just in her nature to try and look after and feed everyone, especially when they came over to visit. Family would come over regularly, they would do her shopping, make sure she was okay, and Kathy had a grin the size of the moon, one of her family members said. Now, she had only just returned home from hospital a few weeks previously. She'd been in and out over the past few months. Although she had lost even more of her mobility recently, Kathy was starting to get some of her strength back. She continued to fight through her illnesses, continuing to push through the pain. At 10:27 p.m. on the evening of October the 24th, 2024, Kathy was tucked up in bed and fast asleep, as usual at that time, when she was awoken suddenly by a noise, a loud noise, then followed by broken glass and more thuds. Due to her mobility issues, she could not just dive out of bed as we would to find out what was going on. She also lived alone, making her worried and afraid of things such as this. Before she could try and work out what was going on, something terrible happened. A man had quickly approached Kathy's front door, and as he did, the doorbell camera activated, capturing this man violently kicking in the front door as hard as he could, but it didn't work. Before he moved towards the large front window, he then started smashing the glass until it gave in, all while the camera continued to film. The sounds of the attack were also recorded. Kathy sat up in bed, looking around in the dark, trying to understand and think about what to do next. But before she could do anything to help herself, this man was now in Kathy's house. She was being dragged out of her bed before he started attacking her. He stamped viciously on Kathy's head and neck, pounding as hard as he could. Kathy lost consciousness and never recovered from these injuries. She subsequently died in hospital from major trauma to the head and neck. The injuries were that severe that they were completely unsurvivable. The last thing Kathy ever felt was pain and fear. One of the worst fears of an elderly person who was living alone was an intruder coming into their house and attacking them in the middle of the night when there was no one there to help. A man had broken into her home in Rhyl and carried out this attack. But who was he? Kathy's doorbell camera had been triggered as soon as the man came close, and a message had been sent to Kathy's daughter Natasha's phone. She was still awake and picked up her phone to see what was going on. Looking at it, she noticed that someone had triggered the camera. She watched the doorbell cam as the man approached her mother's home. Natasha watched as he broke into the house through the front window and listened in horror, knowing that she was not there and she could not do anything to stop it. She listened to the sounds of the attack of her mother screaming. Natasha quickly contacted the police and an ambulance was called out. Kathy's daughter Natasha watched the footage as it played out, and it felt like it was going on forever. She could hear her mother crying out for help as Natasha screamed down the other end of the camera, "Get out of the house!" What sort of a man breaks into an elderly woman's home at night and attacks her in this way while she was sleeping? Kathy Flynn could be heard begging for the man not to hurt her. "Please don't," she screamed. The man could be heard repeatedly demanding, "Where are the keys?" Seconds later, 15 loud thuds could be heard. These thuds were more than likely the sound of Kathy being murdered, being trampled on. The man had repeatedly stamped on Kathy's face, head, neck, and dragged her out of bed, ferociously and repeatedly stamping on her in a brutal and violent, unprovoked attack. But these actions were witnessed by Kathy's daughter, which will undoubtedly stay with her for the rest of her life. Remarkably, Natasha remembered that the app had to stay open for the footage to be recorded. The footage became key evidence in this case. Within minutes of police arriving on the scene and receiving the doorbell footage from Natasha, 2 officers had already identified the culprit in the video as Dean Mears, who police officers had arrested the previous night for breaking into another house in Rhyl. He had been released on bail. Dean Mears worked as a scaffolder in the local area. He was known to police and was often high on substances. He had a history of using coke and KET, as well as smoking the green stuff. Despite being previously arrested for burglaries, Dean had no history of violence. It didn't seem that he had ever attacked anyone that police knew about. So why Kathy? A few hours after he had attacked Kathy Flynn, was tracked down and arrested at his grandmother's house by North Wales police officers who approached with tasers drawn.
Dean, come out, come out. Get down, get down!
I'm coming out. So you can see him. I'll lie on your front. Lie on your front.
Dean, this moment in time is 0306. You're under arrest on suspicion of attempt murder, robbery and burglary. Do you say to may harm your defence, you do not mention when questioned, so we should are in court. Do you understand the caution?
Yes. Please help me.
Reason for your arrest is prompt and effective. Prevent further harm to other people.
After arresting Dean Mears and searching the property, a bag was found with blood-stained clothing, more than likely what he had worn as he had stomped on Kathy. Forensics got to work on Kathy's house, dusting for fingerprints and hoping to find DNA evidence. The doorbell footage was key, but they needed more. Dean's fingerprints had been found on Kathy's house on the window outside, and while being interviewed by police, Dean would only answer no comment to every question when asked about the attack on Kathy. The senior investigating officer in the case, Superintendent Lee Boycott, said Dean Mears sat there in silence. He never showed 1 ounce of remorse, concern, or regret for what he had done, and the reason for the attack may only be known to him. Police requested a statement from Kathy's daughter, Natasha, who was absolutely mortified that she had witnessed such a horrific attack and now had to live for the rest of her life without her mother. She was upset, but she managed to give a full statement to police, explaining what she saw that night. It was horrendous. It was sickening. Dean had murdered Kathy Flynn, but in court, he pleaded guilty to manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility. His defence concentrated on his mental state during the attack. Andrew Jones, QC, for the prosecution said this was an outburst of violence so severe it left Kathy with injuries often only seen in car crashes. The jury was told that the attack shattered all of her facial bones. Dean Mears was only inside Kathy's home for about 1 minute before he tried to escape by jumping out through the window he had initially smashed. As soon as Natasha saw him jump out of the window and run away, she made sure the video was recorded and called the police. Dean had a history of mental health challenges. In December 2023, he had presented to the GP surgery complaining of a long-standing low mood and impulsivity and said he had tried to take his own life. Despite Mears showing no remorse for his actions, Kathy's family remained dignified and respectful throughout the judicial process. The police commended them for their courage. From the witness box, in his own defence, Dean Mears said, "I accept what I have done, but I had no intention to hurt anyone that night." He said that he could not remember going into the house and added, "I wish I did have answers, but I don't." He told the court that he did not remember anything about the attack on Kathy, and when asked if he knew Kathy Flynn or had a grudge against her, he said, "No, I didn't. I didn't even know her." The jury heard from 2 psychiatrists about Dean Mears' state of mind during the attack. Dr. Andrew Shepherd, for the defence, outlined mental health conditions he believed that Dean had. These included depressive disorder, adjustment reaction disorder, and post-traumatic stress disorder, as well as substance misuse. He also explained that Dean might have not remembered the attack, and Dr. Shepherd said, when people who are unaccustomed to violence act in significant levels of violence, their mind often shuts down and pushes against what they are doing. For the prosecution, Dr. John Stanford said he did not think there was anything to suggest a significant mental disorder at the time of the offence or beforehand. Dr. Stanford told the jury he did not think that Dean was psychotic during the attack. In his closing speech to the jury, Richard Patrick Casey, representing Dean Mears, explained that there were many questions unanswered about the attack, and the defendant had several recognised mental health conditions. Mr. Pratt Casey told the jury that if they believed that there was an underlying mental condition and that it could have caused a violent outburst, then they do have an explanation for the attack on Miss Flynn. He continued that if the jury found Dean Mears guilty of manslaughter on grounds of diminished responsibility, they were not exonerating him of all responsibility and that they should still be finding him guilty of a very serious charge. On the 15th of May, Dean Mears was found guilty by a jury following a 3-week trial at Carnarvon Crown Court. Natasha said that she was glad that the jury saw through Dean Mears and his lies and the justice was served. Jim, Kathy's brother, believes that Dean is a coward and what he did was a cowardly act. The judge told Dean Mears, "Your killing of Miss Flynn was truly horrific. You broke in. You went upstairs passing the stair lift she used because of her limited mobility. You dragged her out of bed. You demanded where are the keys. You repeatedly stamped on her head, neck and face, causing the most catastrophic injuries. In my view, you were high on substances, you went to the wrong address, and I take the view that this is a particularly serious matter." Now, Dean Mears is to be sentenced on the 20th of June at Carnarvon Crown Court. The family said, "I welcome today's verdict and thank the jury and the investigation team for their diligent work in securing justice for Kathy's family."